Royal Rumble 2024. Cody Rhodes is on the cusp of winning back-to-back. He wants to finish the story, and this time it's from number 1 and not number 30. But it's number 30 that shocks the world. Daniel Bryan is back in WWE. The roof comes off and the yes chants shake the building. Bryan hits the ring like a man possessed. He wipes out everyone in the match with knees. This is the Dragon, and he's breathing fire. He eliminates everyone except Rhodes. And the dream return turns into a nightmare for Daniel Bryan as he's dumped out of the ring by Cody Rhodes. Rhodes wins the Royal Rumble for the second year in a row. But it's clear, this isn't the return of the Yes Movement. This is the return of a much more combative Daniel Bryan. He assaults Rhodes after his celebration and he beats the living hell out of him. He decimates him completely. Rhodes is motionless as Bryan stomps his head. He leaves him in a heap and the cheers turn to boos. But why is Bryan back? What is his goal? Well, we find out on SmackDown when Cody Rhodes, as the new Royal Rumble winner, is here to declare his hand, and he says, Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, who now is a chief without a tribe. You've lost everyone. You've lost everything except those championships, and your story is coming to an end, just like mine. So to be official, I need to say it. It's time to finish the story. So I officially challenge Roman. Ah, yes, the story. The story! It's all anyone ever talks about. But what about my story, Cody? What about my redemption? What about the humiliation I suffered? Stacked and pinned at WrestleMania. My time here was ended by Roman Reigns. So I was part of this evolution. I was part of how this all started. So why wouldn't I want to be the one to stop him? And Cody says, because you didn't win the Royal Rumble. Maybe you've forgotten how things work around here, Bryan. You're kind of screwed. And Bryan snaps and says, I dominated a place that you helped build, and I did it in a way that you could never. And I actually got cheered, and I was actually respected by the fans there. You weren't. And you know why? It's because you're a fraud, Rhodes. This whole shtick, giving your weight belts to kids, kissing babies, the all-American hero, it's all a mask. You call yourself the Nightmare, but you've never been a nightmare. You're a dream. You're a dream for all the top brass here, for all the top brass anywhere. Someone who can just float on by, coast on your last name, and when it all comes down to it, Cody, you are just a B+ player. You were in Jacksonville, and you are here. And Cody has heard enough. Bryan hit a nerve, and he walks up the ramp, and they brawl all over the stage. They get separated by security, and you can tell that this is far from over. But neither is Bryan's mission. He wants to finish his own story, but in order to finish, you have to start. And he starts the next week on SmackDown with an open challenge. And the man who answers the challenge is someone who Bryan is very familiar with.
It's a new day, yes it is!
It's Kofi Kingston, the man who beat Bryan at WrestleMania for the very title that Bryan now wants back. But as vicious as that version of Bryan was from that era, this one is even more violent. The match doesn't even get started because during Kofi's entrance, he's knocked off the top rope and wiped out by Bryan. He's thrown into the stairs. He throws him all over ringside, and then he starts kicking his head in as well. Xavier Woods runs out to try and stop the assault, but he gets wiped out by a knee, and Bryan continues the assault on Kofi. He's completely out of control.
You think you know me?
It's Edge now! He runs out to save Kofi, and Bryan backs away and says, It's good to see you, Edge. It's been a while. I thought you'd be with me. He humiliated you as well, didn't he? Roman got you as well. And Edge replies, yeah, maybe I am with you. Maybe I am with you hunting the same thing. But I'm not going to stand by and watch you hurt my friends. I don't know what the hell happened to you, but I don't like it. And Bryan smugly walks away. He's under everyone's skin, and it's really starting to heat up. Particularly with the breaking news that there will be a massive Elimination Chamber match taking place in just 4 weeks, where the winner will face a champion of their own choosing at WrestleMania. And that is any champion on any roster. And there will be qualifying matches taking place starting on SmackDown, and of course, starting with Daniel Bryan. And now he's waiting in the ring to find out who he's going to have to beat to qualify. And of course, it's Kofi Kingston. But Kofi's music starts, but he's not coming out the entrance. He instead gives Bryan a bit of his own medicine, and he drags him out of the ring, and he gets his receipt. He beats on him, but he eventually gets him in the ring and the match starts. But Kofi is clearly banged up from last week, and the bandages show it. But he's a fighter, and the match is absolutely outstanding. Both men know each other so well, and it genuinely shows. And speaking of knowing something well, the ending is very familiar. Kofi stomps on Bryan, just like WrestleMania. He's got him down, and he heads over to the corner for Trouble in Paradise. He launches off, but Bryan this time counters it. He saw it coming, and he locks in the label lock. Kofi is in massive trouble. He fades and fades and fades out. But Bryan will not let it go. This is ridiculous. He's wrenching away, and Bryan is as unrelenting as we've ever seen. But once again, it's Edge that runs out for the save. He slides in the ring and runs Bryan off. And Edge is in full gear, because he's up next for his qualifying match for the Chamber as well, and his opponent is the almighty Bobby Lashley. And while this is as tough an assignment as they come, it's all made more easy by the Brawling Brutes, who are now embroiled with the Street Profits and Lashley, and the fight breaks out all over ringside. And with the referee trying to eject them, he's completely distracted, and Sheamus takes the chance to fly through with a brogue, wipe out Bobby Lashley, and it opens the door for Edge to recover. And he's seemingly unaware of the carnage, but he's able to hit the spear and get the win. Edge scrapes through and qualifies, but the question then turns to who else will be in line for qualification. Well, we find out more as we cut backstage to Daniel Bryan, who was watching all of this unfold. But he's quickly joined by another familiar foe. It's AJ Styles. And he says, "Hey Daniel, it's been a while. I was just swinging by to let you know face to face that after I qualify next week, I'll be seeing you in the Elimination Chamber for perhaps a little revenge of my own. I'll see you there." AJ wants in, and all the ghosts from Bryan's past seem to be popping up. And it's announced during that week too that on Raw, Drew McIntyre will face Finn Balor, who has since split off from Judgment Day after being kicked out by former Senior Money in the Bank and current World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest. Balor wants in the chamber to get one more crack at Damian Priest, who is clearly dodging him. And it is in fact Balor who does get the win to enter the chamber after Drew McIntyre is cost the match via a distraction. And it's his arch nemesis, the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, Gunther. And Gunther was the whole reason Drew McIntyre was trying to enter the chamber, so he could pick him to face him at WrestleMania. But now, it seems as though he doesn't have to. And with 3 slots to fill, we find out also on Raw that in fact it will be The Miz who sneaks his way into the chamber as well. It's a nice twist of fate. It's one of Bryan's most famous rivals entering the chamber after having his feet on the ropes over a devastated Johnny Gargano, who misses his chance. But who will take the final 2 spots? Well, one will be decided during SmackDown when AJ faces Grayson Waller in a throwback to the NXT days, and AJ turns on the style to pick up that win. But with 1 slot left, we need to know who that is. And we find out that it is going to be a wild card mystery entrant, and they will be revealed on the night of Elimination Chamber itself. And Bryan is furious with this news when he finds out, and he says, "I knew there was a risk of these kinds of shenanigans when I came back here. So this is my warning to whoever is just waltzing in and not earning it. You're just as bad as Cody Rhodes. You're just as bad as Roman Reigns. You're just walking around expecting the world. So I'll put you down like the rest of these pathetic and fickle idiots. And with that message to the roster and the mystery man, all hell breaks loose. Every member of the chamber match is seen setting spot fires all over the arena. It's uncontained chaos for now. Because while this isn't contained, all 6 men will be locked inside the chamber. And each man has their own goals. Each man has their own choice that they would make. All their different paths, all different stories. It's a winding road that all leads to Elimination Chamber. All members are into the match, except one. The whole world wants to know, who is the wild card entry? The Viper is back! Randy Orton is the wild card! The place erupts! People have waited months for this moment! And finally, it arrives! Randy Orton enters his pod, and the Viper is coiled. And as the match begins, it's The Miz and Bryan to start it off. The history here is real, and it's on show as Miz lays in the Miz kicks. But as he's throwing them, he gets caught. Bryan isn't having it at all, and he says, "You're gonna get your f***ing head kicked in." And Bryan lays in the real kicks, and they all land, and the Miz is down. And then it's time for the next entrant. It's Finn Balor, and he hits the ring with fire in his eyes. He's driven by the desire to get his hands on Damian Priest and the World Heavyweight Championship. He downs Bryan and Miz to take over before we welcome the next man in, and that is AJ Styles. And he has connections with Balor, and they both have a common annoyance, and that is The Miz. And they actually team up on him, all while the devious Bryan watches on and enjoys it. A Styles clash and a coup de grace sees The Miz become the first man to exit. But with one going out, one more comes in, and it's the rated R superstar, Edge. He springs out and goes right after Bryan. They fight on the outside of the ring, using the unforgiving structure as a weapon. All while the partnership between Balor and Styles ends as quickly as it started. But we have one more entrant, and it's the Viper, who is coiled and ready to strike. AJ is spectacularly eliminated by Orton, who catches him out of midair with an RKO. The Viper is on fire. But as usual, it's Bryan who ruins the party. He takes Orton down, but on the outside, Balor now is attempting to recover, when from under one of the pods, Dominic Mysterio has snuck in. He's going to try and keep Balor from getting to Priest. Before he can get to him, he gets speared out of his boots by Edge, who has a lot of history with him as well. Edge takes one look at him and then moves on. He gets back in the ring, but boom! Out of nowhere, he gets leveled with an RKO. Randy gets another elimination. Edge is gone. Balor is heaping even more punishment on Dominic on the outside. He's not looking to relent, but he's far too distracted, because from behind him is Bryan, and he nails him with a knee, knocking him out cold, and now Balor is gone. And with the help of Judgment Day, Priest dodges him again. Just like that, we are down to 2. It's Orton, it's Bryan, and Orton is a big part of Bryan's story as well. And they pick up right where they left off, trading, fighting with everything. It's so even, it's so close. But when Orton looks for an RKO, Bryan reverses it and locks into the bell lock. It's so much strain on the previously injured back of Orton. Bryan is wrenching and wrenching away. It's a targeted attack. Orton can't last. He can't hang on. He passes out from the pain. Bryan scrapes through. Orton narrowly loses his chance to come back in right on top. But Bryan gains the chance to pave his own destiny. And that destiny begins to come to fruition on SmackDown when we see the very man that Bryan and Cody are chasing for the first time in weeks. Is anyone else bored? Is anyone else tired? I am. I'm tired of all this talk of finishing the story. Y'all, I've finished so many stories. I ended Jay. I ended Jimmy. I ended Solo. Hell, I even ended Cody Rhodes last year, but still, he comes back for more. And now, we've got Daniel Bryan, a man I stacked and pinned and sent packing as well. So I ask you again, is anyone else bored?
Wrestling has more than one royal family.
You want to talk about boring, Roman? Let's talk boring. Boring is having your family help with every match. Boring is hearing you come out here week in, week out, pretending to be a fighting champion. Boring is you now, when you're sitting in your locker room alone, standing on the island of relevancy alone, a chief without a tribe. I said this to you 12 months ago, and I meant it then as much as I mean it now. I will finish this story. I agree with Roman. I'm bored. I'm bored of hearing about the story. I'm bored of hearing about tribal chiefs and bloodlines. I just want to kick your heads in. Bryan leaps into action. He starts throwing kicks around everywhere. He's completely flown off the handle. And what seemed like the perfect fairy tale story for Rhodes to return to WrestleMania and dethrone Reigns has now degenerated into exactly the opposite. Bryan is once again injecting himself into the situation, and he's gone into business for himself. And in the weeks following, things pick up even more. It's reaching fever pitch. This story isn't going the way anyone expected. And during the official contract signing, it comes apart again. But this time it's Reigns who snaps first. And right after they're signed, Roman spears Cody, sends him out of the ring. But Bryan, looking for a knee, Reigns avoids it, and he grabs Bryan in a standing cravat around his neck, and now he's threatening him. And he says, I have your whole life in my hands. Why don't you think about your children? Think about what I could do to you right now. Welcome back to the island of relevancy, Daniel. I could end your career like I did last time. Bryan is completely helpless, and Reigns knows it. But he leaves him be. Throws him to the ground, and he says, I'm only letting you go so I can leave something for WrestleMania, so I can stack you and embarrass you again. Roman saunters off. The message is sent, but the story isn't finished. Rhodes has come too far to let Bryan ruin it. He's come too far to let Roman shatter his American dream again. 3 different paths, 3 different stories. And they all end in Philadelphia. A familiar setting. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania, but this time there's no backing for Roman. But what is also familiar is a triple threat match in the main event of WrestleMania, with the disruptor, Daniel Bryan, going into business for himself. And these 3 have all had very different paths here, but the goal now becomes the same, and they are tearing it up, much like the script for this story was when Bryan returned. It's incredibly dramatic. So many close calls, broken up pins, submission escapes. It's about as intense as you could imagine, with so much on the line. Rhodes hits Bryan with a giant top rope Cody cutter, and it sends him to the outside. He spins around and Roman attempts a spear on Cody, but he reverses. He's been here before. This is the true opening he needed. He lands a crossroads and another one. And then, just like 12 months ago, he wants one more, but Roman manages to fight his way over near the corner. Rhodes has him by the neck, looking for another crossroads, but just like 12 months ago, he gets stopped, and Reigns sees this chance, flies off, hits Cody with a spear. But before he can get the cover, Bryan hits the knee, and he locks in the label lock. Cody is desperate. He's trying to get over there, but he's too late. Reigns taps out. Unbelievably, Bryan again wins the title. Again in a triple threat match. And the story is finished, but not the way anyone thought.